Leaders require this type of training. Hey, my dear, I am leadership coach Kathy Archer, and I want to talk to you today about the kind of training you've had and maybe the kind of training you need to take. What I want to start with is, looking at the difference between management and leadership, and then what kind of training you need to develop those skills. Before we jump into today, I'm going to head on over to my other computer for half a second because I want to share this in my Confident Women Leaders group. If you are a woman leader and you are looking for some support and some connections and to network with other women going through similar challenges, then you'll want to join this group. And I will share the link after the call today so that you can join. It's at the top of my Facebook page too, so if you're wanting to jump over there right now, you can do that. But this is a group of women, like I say, who are all struggling with similar challenges. And, I think one of the things that we need to remember is that we don't have to do this alone. We shouldn't be struggling all by ourselves, and that it's okay to reach out and ask for help. So if you want to be a part of that group, just pop on over there and ask, and I will set you up and you can join me. So let's start with today about looking at what's the type of leadership training you've had in the past 5 years. So think about all of the training you've had and think about what it's helped you to do. And as you're thinking about that, what I'd love for you to do, whether you are on the call live or whether you are watching the replay, can you pop a note into the comment box? What's your title in your job? What's your position, your role? What do people call you? Is it manager or boss or coordinator or director or team leader or supervisor? What is the title that you have? Pop that into the comment box now, because I want to know what the different titles are. And I want to take a look at, what is it that we are called these days, and then break that down a little bit. So I want to start with just talking about the difference between management and leadership. And there is a difference. And I think sometimes we get confused and we use the words interchangeably, but they mean different things and they have a different impact. And we need to look at that impact that we're having. So I have to think about this for a minute. What's the most important thing to share first? I think that the first thing we need to look at is managing in many ways is like, let me talk to you like a boat, right? There's a boat in the water. Managing is keeping the boat steady. We don't want to tip over. We don't want to, capsize the boat. That's management. So management is keeping things steady and stable, calming things down, making sure that we stay afloat. Leadership is the person that's taking the boat forward. Leadership is about direction and movement and inspiring those people around you to get going on that vision. And so we need both in an organization, and you probably do both at different times and even at the same time or almost simultaneously, especially if you are a leader in a small organization or smaller organization. We need to do both the managing, keeping things afloat, and the leading, which is taking things forward. Those are both important things. But the way that we develop those and how we use them are different, and we have to really look at those differences. And just grabbing my notes here, I want to give you a couple just sort of run-throughs of words to help you see the differences. So manages seek stability, order, and consistency. When you're managing, that's what you're doing. When you're leading, you're creating a vision, establishing a sense of direction, and you're open to change. So managers don't necessarily want change. They want to keep things status quo. They want to keep things stable. They want to keep things consistent. Leaders, on the other hand, are going, yeah, let's be open to change. Let's look at the future. Let's look at the direction we're going. How can we get there, right? Managers set structures, policies, plans, and criteria. All of those things are important, right? There are, schedules and budgets and policy manuals, all of those things. Whereas, leaders recognize there's going to be some chaos, and, they sort of take all of that with a grain of salt. And we need those things. Sometimes we might break the rules, and sometimes we might move past those things, and sometimes we might move ahead before we have the policy in place, or before we have the written documentation, because we have to get going, right? And so, if you're in the middle of the rapids, you're not going to stop for a little bit of a safety meeting before you get through them. You're just going to move through them, and you're going to inspire the people around you to do what needs to be done and get going, right? That's the difference between management and leadership. Um, Managers have authority over subordinates, whereas leaders influence followers. And this is sometimes, and before I keep going, I want to say that sometimes this is controversial stuff. Sometimes, we see them both doing the same thing, and there's some truth to that. Managers don't sort of always look down at people, and I think that's what we often think of when we use the word subordinates. But in truth, managers are controlling and keeping things stable, so they do have subordinates. And again, you're both manager and leader, and you're doing different roles at different times, sometimes so close together that it feels almost simultaneous. But when you're managing, yeah, you're looking at the people that report to you. You are responsible to them. They are responsible to you. There's that hierarchy of roles. When we're leading, it's a little bit different because we're looking at, I'm out here and I've got this vision and I've got this dream and I'm communicating this and I'm taking people there. And so we have followers who are like, yeah, I'm on that mission too. I want to accomplish that as well. I want to get there too. And so we're looking at you as the leader going, show me the way, right? And so that's one of the other differences. Another one to look at is managers minimize risks. Let's not rock the boat, right? Whereas leaders take risks. They're like, hell yeah, let's try this. Let's go there. Let's do this. I see this. I see the possibilities. I know it's going to be difficult. I know it's going to be tough. But sometimes we just have to do that. So that's the difference. So managing and leading, again, two very different roles, and yet we do both of them simultaneously at different times. So let me give you a couple examples. And I talked about this in this week's blog post. So if you go over to silverrivercoaching.com/blog, you'll see the blog I wrote this week that kind of talks you through this. And, the couple examples I used are this. The first one is about employee development. It's our job as manager, leader, supervisor, coordinator, team leader, whatever you want to call us. It's our job to develop the people underneath us. Personal development, developing our team player, growing them, strengthening, that's all part of our job. Now, when you're managing in that role, what you're doing is you're scheduling regular supervision. You are sending them on training. You are doing performance reviews, right? You're keeping things afloat with that staff member. You're making sure that they show up on time, they do the job they're supposed to do, and they have the training they're supposed to do. Got to get the job done, keep things stable, right? That's managing a person who reports to you. When you're leading a person who supports or reports to you, and again, you might do these things in the exact same conversation. You might sit down, have a supervision meeting with this employee. Part of that time you're managing them, part of that time you're demonstrating some leadership. When you're doing that leadership role, you're having that conversation with them about their strengths and their talents and what they're really good at and where can we put those strengths to use and where would you like to do that best, and here's what I see in you, and here's what I notice, and here's where I see you can grow and develop into. We're inspiring them. We are, taking them from where they are. We're creating a vision for them of where we see they could be. We talk to them about what it is they're going to need to do there, and we're stretching them into that place because we want to see them be the best they can be. We want to watch them grow and develop. I remember at times when I was supervising staff, part of what that meant was that I recognized my staff wouldn't be around for long. I knew that my position in my organization that they were in was only a stepping stone for them. And I didn't let that hold them back or me back from inspiring them to be all they could be. Working with them to develop those skills and strengths. When I moved them into a supervisory position, I knew that might be closer for them to go out the door, but I also knew it was best for them. I also knew that that's where their strength was and to grow them. That's leadership. Sometimes we'll stretch them and give them that little nudge that maybe they wouldn't take on their own, where we say, I want you to take on this new position or take on a couple extra staff or do this program or something that stretches them outside their comfort zone. And that's what's inspiring them to be all they can be. That's leading them to that vision. And so you have to have a vision. You have to know in your head what you see their strengths are, what their potential is, and you have to have that conversation with them. What is it inside you that you want to do? What's the difference you want to make? Where do you feel most alive in your work? What's your strengths? Do some of those little mini tests with them. Figure out where they can be best utilized in the organization and how they can put their strengths to work. That's leading somebody in employee development. So managing is making sure that you have the performance appraisals done, setting up, supervision, sending them on the training required to meet accreditation standards. That's all managing an employee. But when you're leading them, you and them together are creating a vision for their future, and you're helping them achieve the things they need to do to get there. See the difference? Both are needed, both are necessary, and as I say, you're doing both at the same time often. The difference is sort of, are you keeping them stable so that they can move forward, right? I mean, if they're struggling with showing up for work on time, or they're not completing part of the job correctly, or there's some performance issues, you need to manage those performance issues. See where the word comes in? You manage those problems or those issues. And that's often what managers manage problems, leaders focus on solutions, right? So we're looking at, I get it that there's an issue, we need to address this, we need to hold you accountable, can't just not show up for shifts. And here's what I see you growing and developing into. When we can figure out how to get you to do this and do it well, here's the next step that I see for you. And that inspires them to get from here to there. So that's the difference between managing and leading when we're talking about employee development. Here's another one that comes up often in organizations. It's the whole contract changes. And so, I mean, if you have any sort of funding that you get from outside sources, government funding, grants, all that kind of stuff, you've probably been through this a zillion times. Every time the wind changes direction, so does what's expected in the contract. There's a different way of, applying for funding. There's a different way of reporting. There's a different, rules about what you can do and not do. That happens all the time. A leader will sort of have that vision. They will see those changes coming, and they will know how those changes strategically fit into the program. And they're going to look at, where are we now, and what's that vision we're moving into? I get it that the changes are coming. How do we navigate those changes? How does our program fit into those? How do we take that and look at maybe what it is we've been trying to do, and maybe it's an opening for us, and man, we can just slide right in there. Or maybe it's going to, steer us in a direction we hadn't planned on going. So how do we navigate that, right? So a manager is taking those contract changes and going into the future and seeing, how do I take my team and my program forward so that we can get through this change? So it's not that they're resisting the change. They may not like it, but they're recognizing it's part of the process. Often we can think of examples in the world who have not sort of gone with the change and have struggled. BlackBerry's one that was, a big player in the market, and they kind of resisted change. And now you see them not the top of the market. They slid way down. They're still out there, but most people would suggest that they're not top of the pack. Kodak. At one time, Kodak was king and ruler of photography. Not anymore. Those organizations didn't move with the change. Their leaders managed, right? They kept things status quo, but they didn't sort of go with the flow and move forward as everything else was moving forward. And that's something that's important for us to do in organizations. If we stay status quo, if we only stick to what we know and do, we're going to fall apart and we're going to fall behind the pack. We have to change. Change is inevitable. Change is part of life. Change is required to keep an organization strong and growing and developing. And so that's what a leader does. They see the change and they embrace the change. Now, the manager in you is going to mitigate the risks, right? You're going to look at how do, maybe there's some cuts coming. So what do we need to do with the budget? What do we need to do with staffing? They're going to make sure that the boat doesn't tip over, right? They need to keep that program and that organization afloat as it moves forward. So again, you have to look at the side to side as well as the forward motion. These go hand in hand, but they're very different skills. They're very different things that you're doing and have a very different impact. When there's program cuts coming and you're sitting down with your team to have this conversation about it, the manager in you is going to be, making sure that everything stays stable and there's not a riot among the staff. the leader in you is going to inspire everyone to see what's available as a result of the changes, right? So both things are happening. So those are two different things. Let me just look at my notes here for a second. So when you're thinking about training, and this was kind of the whole point in today's call, was to look at, as you are looking at the training you are taking to manage, lead, coordinate, whatever, again, your title is. And if you're clicking in now and watching again, I want you to put in the comments, what's the title you go by? Because I'm really curious what all the titles are that we have. But as you're looking at the training you're taking, and I hope that you've gotten some training over the last few years or have the opportunity to get some training in the future, but look at the training you've taken, and is it management training or leadership training? So management training will be things like, how do you do budgets and spreadsheets? How do you read, those profit reports, things like that. Managing is going to teach you how to do the scheduling and the software for payroll, and which HR forms need filled out, and the schedule of performance reviews. It's going to get you through your accreditation process. That's all managing skills. Absolutely necessary. You must learn how to do those things. Again, very, very often we move up from frontline into supervisory positions, and we keep advancing, but we don't have that training. And so that's where the lack of confidence comes in. If I don't feel competent at budgets and spreadsheets, if I don't feel that I'm capable of knowing how to maneuver through an accreditation review, I'm going to feel that lack of confidence. I'm going to feel like a bumbling idiot. And so you need that training. You must learn the skills associated with managing. Leading is a very different set of skills. Leading is learning to have those coaching conversations with your employees to help them see their potential, to help them grow into their potential. Leading is being able to learn how to create and craft a vision for the future, and then communicating that to your team and inspiring and motivating them to come alongside you to reach that. Those are very different skill sets, right? A manager is looking at, what goals do I need? What timelines do I need? What are the, tactical things I need to do to achieve that? Whereas a leader has more of a bigger vision, a bigger focus. They're looking at, how does these things that we're doing, how does this stuff that we're working on fit into that bigger picture? They're the ones taking that step back and looking at, okay, where are we going to be in 2 or 3 or 5 years? Where do I see? And again, they're looking out on the horizon. You come back to that boat analogy. They're looking way ahead. Let me try that again. I learned this one time from my boss, and I didn't realize how much it impacted us. And you've probably experienced this before, and if you haven't, you've seen people who have. We spend a lot of time head down. We're focused on where we're at right now, the challenge we're having, the problem we're struggling with, rather than lifting our head up and seeing the future. And again, that's part of what management is. Management is keeping things status quo, holding things stable. And so again, that's an important part, but that's more head down, focused on the here and now. Short term. Leadership is head up, looking to the future. So I remember we went bowling as a team development activity one time, and I am not a great bowler. Definitely not a great bowler. Horrible bowler. And I happened to be on my boss's team, and I think he was a little bit discouraged with me. But he said to me, Kathy, you're looking at the ball. Lift your head up and look down at the pins at the end of the lane. And when you release the bowling pin or bowling ball, don't look at your hands and your feet in the ball. Look down at the end of the lane. I'm like, okay, I'll try this. It seems like a little counterintuitive, right? I need to know where the ball's going. Yeah, that's the whole point. You need to know where the ball's going. And so when I did that, when I actually looked at the end of the lane, guess what happened? Strike. That first time I did that. And that's what we need to learn to do as a leader, is we need to lift our head up and see that bigger picture. That's an important piece. So, sorry, I'm grabbing my notes here, making sure I haven't missed anything. So when you're thinking about leadership training, you're looking at that communication stuff. You're looking at how to motivate and inspire your team, creating a vision. you're looking at, how do I be more courageous? How do I take those risks? How do I move past some of that stuff that's a little bit scary? Where do I go to get that next level? So that's an important piece. So one of the things that I want you to remember is that leadership is not a tag or your title. And again, if you are watching this, pop into the comments box, what is your title at work? Because it's just curious for us all to see what the different titles are. But it's not that. Leadership is a way of being. Leadership is how you ask the questions, not necessarily asking a question, but it's the way, the manner, the impact you have when you ask the questions or when you give some direction to somebody. Leadership is about understanding and knowing who you are and your values and your vision and what's important to you, and then using that to guide where it is you're going. Leadership is about influencing others to get to that shared vision. That's not management, that's leadership, right? And so when you're developing the skills to be that impactful or that powerful leader, you have to step back and do some of that inner work. That doesn't happen at budget training. That doesn't happen at conflict resolution training. That doesn't happen when you're taking training on, how to deal with policies or get ready for accreditation. That's not leadership training. Leadership training is the training that makes you go inside and look at what's important to me, who am I, what's the impact I want to have on my team and the people in my team, what's required to get that impact, and how do I cultivate or grow that in myself. Here's some questions that I think are really important to ask. The first one, I said this a couple times already, what's the impact I want to have? I think that's one of the things we have to look at. The impact that I want to have is not to stomp on somebody and make them feel smaller, less than, to take away their self-esteem or to put them in their place. That's not the impact I generally want to have. The impact that I want to have is that I want to see people grow into their full potential. I want to inspire them to stretch outside their comfort zone. I want to have that impact that has somebody lift themselves up taller, more confidently and say, I can do this. I want to see the programs or the groups or the organizations or the individuals that I'm involved with moving forward, not simply maintaining status quo, but the impact I want to have is that they're growing and developing, that they are advancing, that they're moving in the direction they want to go, right? That's the impact that I want to have. Who do you have to be to have that impact? So figure out the impact you want to have and then ask yourself, who do I have to be to get there? For me, I have to be an inspiring individual. I have to be motivated myself. I have to show people how to be courageous, to step outside their comfort zone, to grow themselves. I have to role model it, right? What do you need to cultivate that in yourself to be that person is the third question. So again, what's the impact you want to have? Who do you have to be to have that impact? And then what do you need to cultivate in yourself to get that? So for me, I have to cultivate courage. I have to cultivate that ability to step outside my comfort zone, do things that I wouldn't normally do. And then that fourth question is, and this is kind of the whole crux of today's call, where do I get that training to do that? Who's going to help me? What information do I need? What kind of skills do I need to practice to be that kind of person? If I want to have that impact, if I want to be that type of person that takes people from where they are now to their full potential, where do I get the skills to do that, right? So for me, I've read tons of books. I've taken training around leadership. I have, I follow people that inspire me, and I learn to develop that in people. So the coaching skills that I have, the positive affirmations that I often do, the way that I help people shift their perspectives, those are all things that help you be your best self, that help you grow and develop into your full potential, that help you utilize your strengths in the most efficient way you can and the most powerful way you can. But those are skills that I developed. I didn't always have those. And that's the misnomer that we often have, is that I can develop management skills, I can grow management skills inside of me, but I'm either a leader or I'm not. I either have it or I don't. And that fixed mindset of I'm either a leader or I'm not, or I have it or I don't, holds you back. You have to shift that mindset to that growth mindset where you start believing that you have the ability to develop the skills as a leader, where you have the ability to grow and impact. And when you can shift that, that's when you start to recognize how to, where do I get this training? So some of the traits of great leaders are integrity and trust, the courage to take risks, and that awareness to maintain your composure, that emotional intelligence that I often talk about. And so if you want to increase your integrity, if you want to learn how to develop trust in people so that they follow you and help you reach your goals and dreams and visions, if you want to develop more courage in you to be a bigger risk taker, to step outside your comfort zone more often, and if you want to increase that emotional intelligence so that you're not getting hijacked by your emotions and that you are able to maintain your composure in tough situations, then you need to get some training to do those things. That's the question of today. So as you know, I always have guide sheets for these. So if you pop on over to silverrivercoaching.com/guides, you'll find the guide that helps you walk through, what's the training I've had, kind of what are the gaps, and then where can I start to look for some training to help me advance my leadership skills. I think some of the things that you can do is take some formal training, but it's harder to find the formal training. It's not out there. I do offer my Women with Grit program, and it will run this fall. That's one thing that really focuses on leadership. Many people just do this kind of haphazardly, though, and what I think you need to do is create a plan, kind of a roadmap, where you look at who am I and what do I need to build and grow myself to be the person to have the impact that I want to have. So that might be where you develop a plan that includes training, online training, or books that you're going to read, or maybe you're going to watch the top 5 TED Talks, or maybe you're going to do some research on courage, or maybe you're going to do some things that push you outside your comfort zone, outside your job. Maybe you're going to look at what is the definition of integrity and how do I develop more integrity. All of those things might be what you do to develop this plan for you to increase your leadership skills. So that's what the guide is for today, is starting to look at what are the leadership skills that I need to increase, and maybe where do I start to look or take some training to develop those. So again, silverrivercoaching.com/guides will get you the guide for this week about, leadership training. And again, go back to what's the training I've had over the last 5 years or however long to do my job, not the frontline job, but the manager leader job. And has it been management training or has there been some leadership training? And maybe there's been both in some of the training, but what are the gaps? Where do I need to increase my leadership skills, and where can I get that training to increase those leadership skills? You can pop on over to my Silver River Coaching page. I can't remember the exact link, but if you go up to the top in the bar, there's it's called Reading List, and so there's tons of books there. That might be one place for you to start. On my YouTube channel, again, there's tons of videos that you can watch. You can go through past Facebook Lives that I've done, and there's lots of training there, so if you pop on over to the videos. But start to think about, where can I get some of this training? Summer is a great time to do some of this unscheduled training, where maybe you spend the last half hour of your day doing some, leadership learning, reading a book, watching a video, having a conversation with somebody else about what your strengths are and what's important to you, maybe doing a little bit of journaling. This downtime is a great time for you to start strengthening your leadership skills, because your management skills will help you keep the boat steady. But if that's all you do, you're going to be a little bit frustrated, and so is your team. We are hardwired for growth and development. That's when we are at our best, is when we continue to evolve and grow and develop. And when we get stuck and stagnant, we get cranky and tired and bitchy, and so do our employees. And our programs start to fail. Again, think of Kodak or BlackBerry. Those are a couple examples. When you think of other examples, like I think of McDonald's as one, not that I've been at McDonald's in a long time, but they've grown and developed. They used to focus primarily on, fast food and get the families in for cheap. There's been a shift to more of their coffee stuff and a shift to more of a healthy menu. They've floated along with the times rather than resisted them. And as such, they've stayed a key player in the fast food industry. And that's an important piece of the puzzle. Again, we have to keep growing and developing, and that's what leadership is. Develop your leadership skills. Pop on over to silverrivercoaching.com/guides. Get the guide for this week so that you can start to develop your leadership skills, enhance who you are as an individual that inspires the people around you. Remember, that's your job as a leader, is to grow and develop those people that are your followers. In order to do that, that's a way different skill set than management. You need both. Don't think that this is an either or. You need both. If this has been helpful for you, please share this information with your peers. Talk about it with your staff team. Replay the video at staff meeting if that's helpful for you. But do the things you need to do to help other women leaders who are also maybe struggling too. Pop on over and join my Confident Women Leaders group. Follow along with my weekly Facebook Lives here and my weekly blogs so that you can grow and develop yourself and have the impact you want. When you do, instead of staying stuck and stagnant, you're going to start to grow and feel better and enjoy your leadership role better. And here's the other thing about that, the bonus. When you do that, you then start to have that bigger impact at home too. I mean, you're not coming home as cranky and exhausted and worn out as you were before when you were cranky and exhausted and worn out at work. When you start to thrive in your work, when you start to enjoy it more, that's when you start to see things shifting in the other parts of your life. So again, pop on over and get the guide. Go on to my Silver River Coaching page and find the books list, lots of books there. My book is out there, Mastering Confidence. That's one that you can look at. Find some stuff that you need to help develop your leadership skills so that you can do both managing and leading, so that you can keep the boat afloat and take it forward. Thanks for listening today. Again, if this has been helpful, please share and make sure you add me to, I can't remember what it's called, follow along, so that you get next week's notification when I'm doing Facebook Live so you don't miss it. Thanks, my dear. Talk to you next week.